We have tons of news and rumors to discuss here today, including the Edmonton Oilers forcing Game 6 with a huge Game 5 victory last night in South Florida. They head to Edmonton for Game 6 on Friday. Plus, in the rumor mill, we're looking at some trade talk involving Patrick Laine, the latest on him. According to several sources, the Ottawa Senators are extremely busy, have some lots of talks on the go, including some with Bruins and the Flyers. So we'll discuss all the latest rumblings there. Plus, we also have a lot of trades that have already taken place today. We'll quickly recap all the other action, some signings as well, and a whole lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover today, all kinds of rumors floating around. We've had a busy day of activity. There's lots of other videos posted to the channel today with the other trades, but we'll quickly recap what's transpired in case you missed it. But first, I want to recap Game 5 last night of the Stanley Cup Final. The Edmonton Oilers once again pull out a huge victory against the Florida Panthers and now drag them back to Edmonton and back to Alberta for Game 6. As the words of McDavid, that's what he said after game number 4, that they had to drag them back, and they're doing just that. They had another huge night. They've now scored 13 goals in 2 games, 12 against Bobrovsky, 1 in an empty net. And they look like a whole different team, and so do Florida for that matter. The series has really shifted, and I would not want to be Florida right now. They've had 2 chances to close them out and win the Stanley Cup, and they failed to get the job done. There's got to be a seed of doubt creeping in, you have to think, especially going back to that, really loud and raucous Edmonton building. Like, this is not going to be an easy task for Florida. And I think the last thing they ever thought of here a few days ago is that they might be just maybe heading back home to play Game 7 for the Stanley Cup after getting up 3-0. It was a case for the Oilers again. Their penalty kill was phenomenal. Again, Connor Brown has been really good the last few games. Scores a massive shorthanded goal on a shorthanded breakaway. He picked off a cross-ice pass near the blue line and took off, and Barkov could not catch him and beats Bobrovsky, puts them up with a goal there. We saw the power play for Edmonton again be really good. Skinner was really good early on as well. Matthew Tkachuk for Florida finally scored and set up a goal as well. He had a much better game. Obviously, it was been, I think, disappointing for himself on how the results have gone. I mean, he's obviously been trying hard and, throwing the body. I'd like to see Matthew Tkachuk throw a check for once, actually, hit a guy face on, instead of just turning and throwing his rear end into him. That seems to be the Matthew Tkachuk hit. I don't understand why he can't lay a normal body check, but that's a story for another day. However, I will give him credit. He made an amazing play in the dying seconds to save an empty net goal. Although if his teammates would have played just as hard, maybe they wouldn't have given it up afterwards. But with the puck going down the ice, heading for the Florida net, Tkachuk's racing back, makes a diving play with his stick reached out and manages to get enough of the puck to knock it out of the crease just before it crossed the line. Everybody thought it was going in. He probably did too. He managed to get to it. It was a highlight reel play that you'll probably be seeing on highlights for quite a long time. After that, of course, the puck goes off to the side towards the corner, and it was Oliver Ekman-Larsson who was the other player playing the point with Tkachuk when this puck was flipped out. And Ekman-Larsson was with McDavid. He stopped skating and just stopped playing. I don't know what Oliver Ekman-Larsson was doing there. Can anybody tell me if he just thought, okay, I'll just let him have it? I realize at this point the odds are against you for getting the game tied. But if they retrieve that puck quickly and can make a pass down out of their zone, they've still got about 14, 15 seconds. And it's a 1-goal game still. What in the world was OEL doing? Now, for Florida fans, you should be angry at him for giving up on that play. He doesn't even try to stop McDavid from getting that puck and putting it in the empty cage. Completely ridiculous on his part. He's been pretty good for them. I will give him credit, but that play, absolutely inexcusable, especially after the effort his teammate Tkachuk just made to keep that puck out of the net. Teammates should be furious with him. But because of that, we get a 5-3 Oilers victory. Game 6 will take place Friday night in Edmonton. Like I said, it should be a rocking building, and we'll be real curious to see if Florida has third time's a charm to close it out, or if the Oilers are going to keep at him here. They made Bobrovsky look human. They 13 goals in 2 games. The power play is going good. The shorthandedness is on the PKs going well. They're actually up. Like, they're shorthanded. They have more shorthanded goals than Florida has power play goals. So, at the end of the day, the Oilers are a completely different team. So we will see. And the record of Skinner facing elimination in games 4, 5, 6, and 7 is pretty darn good. His stats are amazing when his back's up against the wall. Not only has McDavid as well hit the record for assists in a playoff year by Wayne Gretzky and taken that record, but Evan Bouchard now has passed the record for most assists by a defenseman in a playoff series, previously held by his D coach, Edmonton Oilers legend Paul Coffey as well. So Bouchard also breaking records, and for the first time ever in Stanley Cup Finals history, Connor McDavid becomes the first player to have back-to-back 4-point nights, and doing so while facing elimination is even more remarkable. He is at the absolute top of his game right now and seems to be determined not to let Florida get the cup. So we'll see how Game 6 goes down. Let me know your thoughts on how the series, and if your opinion has shifted on who's going to win the Stanley Cup now at this point. Like I said, we had 3 trades already today. A couple of big ones, some doozies here. Markstrom gets the day started. Calgary trades Markstrom to New Jersey for Kevin Ball and a 2025 first-round pick. Absolutely underwhelming return for the Flames. They also retained 30%, or 31.25, I guess it was, of Markstrom's salary. So that knocks it down to like around the $4 million mark. He makes $6 million a year for 2 more years, 34 years of age. So now the Devils get their tandem of Markstrom and Jake Allen, and combined, because there's retained salary on both guys, their goalie tandem is about $6 million, and they get 2 veteran guys there. So a good move by Fitzgerald and the Devils. Calgary gets a very underwhelming return. I thought for sure when we heard that trade was going down, it would be this year's first, which is 10th overall, but no, they still have that. I expect the Devils to continue to be busy here. Wouldn't be surprised if Fitzgerald's got another big move up his sleeve to try to get this team even more ready for next year. Then the next bit of business we saw was Ty Dellandrea of the Dallas Stars, former first-round pick, 23-year-old player. Soon to be, or is he soon? I think he's soon to be 24, if I'm not mistaken. Has been traded to the San Jose Sharks for a 4th-round pick. That's basically a cap dump, or roster spot dump, if you will. A young player that's, I don't know. I mean, to me, he was drafted too high. I think the expectations were too high, but, to give up on him that age is something. Obviously, they would rather have the money to spend on another player, so they're in win-now mode. We'll see what they do. Then the Sharks not only got Dellandrea, but they picked up the contract of Barclay Goodrow on waivers from the Rangers. So that rids the Rangers of the remaining 3 years and $3.6 million. It was believed, there was a rumor that there was like a handshake behind-the-scenes deal between the Sharks and the Rangers. Of course, we know Chris Drury and Mike Greer are good buddies, that if they put him on waivers that he would take him. And I at first didn't quite understand why, but now it makes more sense. There is a belief that because Barclay Goodrow does have some trade protection in his contract, that he had San Jose on his no-trade list. So they knew that he would not approve a trade to the Sharks. So they said, okay, well, if you're not going to approve it, we'll get you there another way. And they did it backhandedly. But that's how things work in the business of sports. So, yeah, that's believed to be what's went down. Can't confirm that, but we'll see if we ever get confirmation. So, yeah, it's been a very, very busy day. Lots more news going on. We'll start with some more speculation on candidates for this Columbus Blue Jackets head coaching position. Beat writer for the Columbus Jackets in the Athletic, Aaron Portzline, very well-connected reporter, has a bunch of names that he listed today as people he expects Don Waddell to talk to and interview, some of which we mentioned yesterday, but there are some new names here that we didn't hear, include Jeff Blashill, Dean Evison, former coach of the Wild, Gerard Gallant, coached many teams, been out of the league a little bit. Glenn Gullickson's a name he mentions, who's currently an assistant coach with the Edmonton Oilers, looks after their power play. Gullickson did have a head coaching job, I believe, with Calgary, if I'm not mistaken, briefly. He's coached a lot in the province of Alberta. Head coaching role wasn't very long-lived, but he's been a lot of experience as an assistant coach, and it's been a while since he's had that head coaching duty. I don't know how strong of a candidate he is, but he's apparently out there, according to Portsline. Dave Haxtell, who recently was let go. Todd McClellan's name is out there, and Jay Woodcroft. So lots of combination of experienced coaches with different kind of teams and things they've been through. So I'll be curious to see what direction that they go in. A bunch of other news updates as well. The various updates around the NHL. The Penguins have made a decision to hire Kirk McDonald, who's going to be their new head coach for the American Hockey League for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. So he's the AHL head coach. He's been a USHL coach for around the last 10 years or so. So certainly looking to make the jump up. So McDonald takes over their AHL team. The Anaheim Ducks are apparently very interested in Rich Clune. Rich Clune was a longtime Toronto Marley. I mean, he has been obviously played for other teams, but the last stretch of his career is where he finished. He was in the Preds organization for a while, had some NHL playing experience, was a long-time minor leaguer in the final stretch of his career for quite a while there. He was the Toronto Marlies captain, was like a player coach almost, if you will, and has been since he retired not long ago, has been an assistant coach with the Marlies. I know that a lot of people in the Leafs organization really like Richie Clune, but apparently there is interest from Pat Verbeek and the Anaheim Ducks to bring him onto the Anaheim Ducks bench. So it would be a step up for him to go from the AHL to the NHL. I think if he stays with the Leafs, eventually he'll probably get promoted to the NHL bench, but hard to say when that'll take place. No word yet if that's actually going to happen, but there's believed to be interest to bring him to Anaheim, so we'll see if that happens or not. Maple Leafs defenseman Jake McCabe has changed agencies. He's now going to be represented by Bartlett Hockey. He is eligible for a contract extension this coming offseason. I know for Leaf fans especially, you might look at McCabe's contract as being pretty cheap, and that's because it is, because when he was traded from the Blackhawks, they did retain some salary. So he's certainly going to be looking for, I would suspect, a decent raise, maybe not a huge one, but he's looking for a new contract and obviously going with new representation, same representation as Bobby McMahon. Some other notes around the league. Former first-round pick for New York Rangers from 2017, Elias Anderson. Another high pick that was kind of off the board a little bit by the New York Rangers that hasn't worked out. Is after a number of tries at the NHL last couple of years. He's been in different organizations, barely gotten an NHL sniff, mostly been a minor leaguer, as heading back to Europe and is going to be signing and playing in the Swiss League. The Rangers definitely missed on a couple of, I guess you could say, reaches of higher first-round picks they had in the latter part of that decade for sure. I mean, you look at him being one, Kravtsov being another. Unfortunate that they went for some names that were just a little bit out of their element there and just picked in the wrong spots. But some not so great picks, a few of them there. Former Ottawa Senators chief pro scout Rob Murphy has been picked up and hired by the Washington Capitals in a pro scouting type role as well. I know the article I've seen saying he was well respected, been around the league a long time, and that's all good. He could be a good person and well respected, but Sens pro scouting was abysmal for many, many years. So yeah, Washington can have him. I'm sure that Ottawa's not going to miss that. It was one of the first moves that Staios made after taking over hockey operations in the nation's capital. A few signings today as well. We've got a signing in Utah. They've signed goalie Matt Vitelta, 2 years, two-way deal, 25 years old now. He's played 50 games for the Tucson Roadrunners last year. Obviously, at this point, hard to say for sure what his opportunity is going to be to get to the NHL, but obviously he sees a potential path there with the Utah franchise, so they'll extend him for 2 more years. The Red Wings today signed young defenseman Albert Johansson. He gets a 1-year, 2-way contract extension. The Vancouver Canucks have extended defenseman Mark Friedman. He gets a 1-year deal at league minimum $775. And the New York Islanders announced a signing today for Kyle McLean. He gets a 3-year contract at $775 as well. Nice to see the New York Islanders not waiting till September to make their contract announcements when everybody doesn't have a clue what they're doing. I know that a couple of years back, Lou decided not to announce anything all offseason because he didn't want people to know what his cap situation was like trying to make some trades. So nice to see a little change in direction that way. A bunch of rumors for what else might happen in the next few days leading up to the draft. I know on Elliotte Friedman's latest 32 Thoughts podcast, he talks a bit about Patrick Laine, who's been one of the hot topics. Certainly a still fairly young, former high-profile scorer who's struggled the last couple of years, looking to be out of Columbus and get a fresh start. One of the teams that has not really come up until he mentioned it here in the podcast is the Seattle Kraken. And he said he's been told by some good sources that to watch Seattle here, not to be surprised if they make a play for his services. Obviously, they're a team that 2 years back, when they made the playoffs, they were a very high-scoring team. But as I mentioned during the videos I made talking about their team, they really had everything go right in that year. They had so many players, especially in the forward group, hit career highs and high shooting percentages. It was absolutely crazy, and it just wasn't something that I felt was sustainable at all. So you could call it a setback or the step back this year. Didn't surprise me in the least. I seen it coming based on, just like I said, you can't have that many things go right and be career highs and all this stuff and expect that to continue and to duplicate itself. It's just not reasonable. So they were a much lower scoring team this year. So to add a player like Laine's caliber who can pot you 30, 40 goals if he's doing his best, that would be a great addition. Hard to say what kind of return that could be. They're not the most flush when it comes to prospects, and they're going to want to hang on to some of their top ones for sure. Obviously they do have a few good ones, like, obviously Shane Wright's looking really a lot better now than he used to be. The former 4th overall pick should be a good NHLer this year. I mean, they've got Jager Furcus coming, who's a real good junior player. The Furcus Circus, as they call him, should be a pretty entertaining player down the road here as well. And they've got a few others, plus they've got a fairly high pick in the draft. I don't know if they're going to want to give up much away in the future, so I'm not sure exactly what the return could be, but the Kraken certainly very interested in the Finnish forward. Some other news and notes around the rumor mill could suggest here that, from what we're hearing, that the Senators are expected to be very, very busy. It sounds like Steve Staios and some of the Ottawa people on Twitter calling him Chef Staios is cooking, as they say. He's got lots of things in the hopper here, lots of conversations we've been hearing for the last week or two that, when it comes to goaltending and a lot of talks around defense, and the Senators are pretty much involved in pretty much everything. Conversations are crazy. It sounds like Staios' phone is constantly blowing up with calls and texts and trying to get deals done here. So it won't be surprising if they start to actually make some hay here and get some stuff done soon enough. But there is reports from a number of reporters that the Senators and the Flyers have had talks, and the Senators and the Bruins. Now, with the Bruins, it's no secret that they covet Linus Ullmark, of course, the goaltender. That's very much expected to be dealt by the Boston Bruins this offseason. They obviously need to extend goalie Jeremy Swayman, RFA, clearly the frontrunner and starter and goalie, the present and the future for this team. Ullmark's been really good, mind you, but it doesn't make sense for them to block Swayman out. I mean, we've seen Ullmark sit on the bench for the bulk of the playoffs, and there's no secret that that's likely going to be what happened moving forward. He's got 1 year left at $5 million. Certainly a player that is well respected and well coveted around the league, considering the number of teams out there looking for goaltending help. The problem here is Ullmark's got trade protection. If he doesn't really want to move, he may not be able to, and the Bruins might be stuck. But at the same time, it just sounds like, from what Bruce Garriock's reporting, that the Sens have been very aggressive in their push to try to get Ullmark, and I'm not sure if they're working on selling him on the idea of coming to Ottawa or what it is. It's believed that if they're going to get a deal done with Boston for Ullmark, if there's any hope of it, it's going to take probably a player like Jacob Chychrun and maybe a first-round pick. Now, the Senators hold the Bruins' first-round pick, which has made its way through a couple of trades and over to Ottawa. They could possibly give that pick back to Boston along with Chychrun. It's believed as well, according to Garriock, that the Bruins have no interest in taking Jonas Korpisalo, who the Sens would love to offload, but they may be able to and interested in taking Anton Forsberg. He's only got 1 year left and could serve as the backup for Jeremy Swayman for the coming season. So that's a possibility of something that is being discussed and worked on. Hard to say. because the other rumor about the Flyers and the Sens very well could involve Chychrun too, and and these two rumors could even be connected. There's belief that it was Travis Yost, who writes for TSN, was the first one to put it out there on Twitter today, saying that he's heard that the framework is in place for a pretty serious Senators and Flyers deal, but it probably won't happen closer to the draft. Now, if it won't happen closer to the draft, that tells me that there might be some contingencies here, and each team kind of has, like sort of like a handshake agreement saying that, if this happens, we'll do this or what have you, right? So it might be contingent on something else playing out or another draft pick being available, or, even when you get to the draft, if it hasn't happened yet, might be like, okay, when the Sens are going to pick if a particular player is available, because there's belief that the Flyers would like to move up from 12 and get into the top 10 at the NHL draft. And if they do that, well, the Sens are at 7 right now, so that could be a case of the Sens moving back. I've seen some of the Flyers media, they claim to have knowledge of what's been going on. It's hard to say what the truth is because there's so many different rumors out there right now. But there's some that are saying that it involves a defenseman going to the Flyers for multiple assets coming back. And the person who put that out there said it's not going to be the defenseman that you think. Well, the one that everybody thinks and the most obvious is Chychrun. If it's not Chychrun, then to me it's got to be either Brandstrom or Chabot. Chabot would obviously have a lot more value, but comes with a lot more money on his contract. The only issue there is that if you look at the Flyers, who are in a rebuild, does that really make sense for them? Now, Brandstrom would make more sense to me than a Chabot trade. I mean, they've already got Travis Sanheim, Cam York on the left side. Like, do they really want Chabot too? Like, that would be a baffling deal for me from the Philly perspective. Now, Brandstrom for like a Morgan Frost or something, like maybe that's something that works. But if the Sens and Flyers are talking about draft picks and moving up, well, then we'll see. Like, it's tough to pin down what the truth is, because it's believed that like one of the assets going to Ottawa in this potential deal, if it happens, could either be Scott Laughton or Travis Konechny. And it could even be a case of Konechny with an extension. I mean, we know that obviously Claude Giroux, a former Flyer, knows a lot of these guys, could be asked for opinions. Not to say that he's running the team, he's not. But Konechny's looking for big money on an extension though. So to me, for the Sens to take on another forward that could be making that kind of big money, they'd have to move out somebody else who's making big money. That's why, would a Chabot for Konechny trade make sense? I think for Ottawa it would, because then they would likely mean they would keep Chychrun, you would think, and extend him. And maybe if they feel like I've been saying all along, I would consider moving Chabot if you can sign Chychrun for less money. Because right now Chychrun's only making like $4.5. He's going to want a raise. If you could get Chychrun to sign in Ottawa for like $6 or $6.5 and move Chabot's $8 million out, then that gives you extra wiggle room on your cap. You could take a more expensive forward or another position player to upgrade. Obviously, like I said, I've been saying for a while, they could use another top 6 forward. Konechny has ties to Ottawa through his junior time. Obviously played with Claude Giroux. I know I've heard him say numerous times he loves Giroux and has a lot of respect for him. Probably wouldn't balk at the idea of playing with him again, but it's just really hard to say. We also know that Tortorella and the Flyers really like Konechny, so it's difficult to say. We know that Scott Laughton's name has been out there, but it was believed to be, because he's a former DJ Smith player from junior, that the Sens were really interested in getting Laughton for a long time, mostly because of the DJ Smith connection, which is a problem that Pierre Dorian let that happen way too often. He let DJ influence a lot of moves, and look where that got him, right? But I know some Flyers media say that they're hearing that the Sens do still like Laughton, even the current new regime. So I don't know. There's just so many different pieces out there in the rumor mill. It's hard to piece it all together to say, okay, here's what the deal likely is going to be. But it sounds like a significant Sens-Flyers trade. Could involve them swapping first-round picks. It sounds like a defenseman going to the Flyers and a piece or two coming back to Ottawa. And it could be a bigger piece, probably, like I said, a forward. I think, maybe it's Laughton and pick 12 for Chychrun and pick 7. I mean, that seems lopsided too. I don't know. Maybe Morgan Frost gets thrown in. I don't know. It's hard to pin down everything. Like I said, there's so many different sources out there claiming that they have the intel, but nobody wants to put names to it just yet. So it's proven to be very challenging. At the end of the day, Steve Staios is in the kitchen with a chef hat on, cooking up a bunch of trades for the Senators, trying to make them better. It's believed they're pushing hard for Ullmark. They're pushing hard with the Flyers. Some think it's Konechny. Some think it's something else. We will have to wait and find out, but it's something that could come together anytime. The information could even change by the time I get done this video. Maybe we're waiting at the draft and something big gets announced, or anytime in between. It's going to be we saw the news cycle just get hectic today, and that's bound to keep going. There's no Stanley Cup final game tomorrow either, not until Friday night. I would suspect tomorrow could be just as busy of a news cycle day as it was today. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. There's going to be tons of news coming out here over the next several days. You want to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.